Hi, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Who have we got with us today? We've got Lauren. Who else is? We've got Tanya from New Zealand. Hi, Tanya. And Jane from London. If anybody who's new here wants to say hi, please introduce yourselves in the chat. And if it's your first time with me, it would be great to kind of know who we've got new as well, and we can welcome you into the community. How are you, Lauren? How's it going? We're probably going to wait for a few people to join before we get started on the kind of key topic, which is a continuation of last week. So I know people will kind of take a little while to trickle in, but same as last week, I've got another book with me where whoever would like a kind of message read for them, if you give me a number between 1 and, let me check, 205, I think is the last one. Yeah, a number between 1 and 205, and I will pull out a message for you from this book called Love Your Life. So, hey guys, welcome. So, hey Thea, hey C. Who I don't know if C is anybody that I know, so if you want to put your full name in the chat, please do. And hi Tanya from New Zealand. So, let me start with number 11 for Lauren. So yeah, this is always a nice little thing to do as we wait for people to join. So this is what the kind of pages sort of look like. Each of them has a little quote or a message. So Lauren, this is for you. Find the time to daydream. The real thing that holds most people back is lack of imagination. They simply can't conceive of the life they want to be living. The only limit to your potential is your imagination. So find some time to daydream about what your life could be like and see what your imagination can come up with. Does that ring true at all, Lauren? And then C, you wanted 23 and Thea 22. That's quite handy that they're kind of next to each other on the pages. Right, 23. And yeah, Lauren's in Australia for anyone who doesn't know that, which is why she's talking about summer while we're all on a winter wavelength. Right, 23. So, C, this is a message for you, but also if it rings true for anyone else, I think you're here because you're supposed to be hearing what we have to share today. So, achieve your potential. Imagine what your life would be like if you were achieving 100% of your potential. If you don't feel you are already living up to your true potential, don't panic. Rather than try to change everything overnight, make a plan to move towards your destiny a few steps at a time. Make a commitment to these goals and watch your destiny become your reality. So we've got for Thea 22. So Thea, you've got a very cute little quote. Destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And that's quoted by a guy called Jeremy Kitson. And I don't know who he is, but if anyone does know in the chat, we've had this in previous weeks where people will kind of tell us and fill us in. I think last week there was a quote from someone who was a baseball player or something like that, or like some sort of American sport. So 44 for Tanya. And it also, if anyone else has just joined and wants to say hi in the chat, please do. And when we've got a few more people joined in, we'll get cracking on the continuation of last week's topic. So Tanya, I literally just flicked through and opened. I kind of just got my thumb because I'm doing it one-handedly, and I opened it on the right page for Tanya. So Tanya, you've got a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, which is, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." I like that. Does anybody else, if anyone else would like a message from the book, just while I wait for people to kind of join in to start on our core topic, if you put a number between 1 and 205 in the chat, then I can pull a little message for you of, maybe something that you either need or would like to hear today. But how is everybody doing? And also, if anyone hasn't said hi already, Especially if I don't know you, please pop in and say hello and let us know where you're from. 71 for Debbie. I'm gonna put the mic down and do this quicker. Debbie, before I read this one out, do you do a lot of multitasking by any chance? And also, funny enough, 71 is a number that is significant to me. I'm not gonna mention why, but it's a number that's significant. So that's interesting that you picked that. So yours, Debbie, is don't multitask, which is something that I do a lot as well. The only real way to get lots of things done is to focus on doing only one thing at a time. The power of multitasking is a myth. 10% of things isn't 100% of anything. Give each task that you're working on 100% of your attention, and you'll be amazed at how much you get done. Does that ring true, Debbie, or do you think you're like a successful multitasker and you actually are pretty good at it? So we've got like maybe 24, 25 people with us. So I'm going to just run through a little update on what we covered last week. Was anyone who's here now in last week's session? I know obviously Lauren, you were. Is there anyone else here who was with us last week? I know I did it on a different day of the week, so I think Monday is generally a little bit quieter. But I'm just going to briefly recap. Basically, one of the things that we spoke about last week was there was a couple of sort of things that I'd seen and heard in the week, which I'm just going to repeat because they were really profound for me and kind of stuck with me and in my mind a lot. So let me just pull those up. Right, so there's another teacher on here called Melissa Manifests, and one of the things that she said in her session that I was on last week was that you'll only receive what you're ready for. So she gave a quote that was around like, you know, our vessel can only hold what we're ready for it to hold. And I can't remember the person she mentioned, but basically it's like if we want to receive more in our lives or manifest more, we need to kind of expand our vessel so that we have the capacity to do it. And the analogy that she gave was like, you know, if you plug something into a socket and the socket hasn't got a strong enough voltage for it, the item or like we will explode. And there was also, you know, we had a little chat around sort of the difference between self-love and self-respect and which of those things is sort of more important and why. And just in a nutshell, the kind of main takeaway was that self-love or actually self-respect is actually more about doing things that serve your highest good and are in your long-term best interests, and you know, with regard sort of have a focus on your long-term well-being compared to just what feels nice short term or, you know, what will give you instant gratification. So we talked around, we sort of initially last week's session we sort of talked about what it means to reflect on who we spend our time with and why it's important, and also why who you surround yourself with matters. And you know, I shared a couple of quotes around, and some of them are super popular, like you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or you know, the fact that whatever habits and lifestyle people around you have, you're very likely to pick up on them, and um, things are pretty infectious without us realizing. And one of the quotes that I liked the most is by a guy called John Donne, and I don't know who he is, but the quote was, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." And so last week we mainly covered, you know, how to tell if you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people and what that feels and looks like, and how we can try and avoid that. And so some of the, just to kind of summarize briefly, it was things like feeling drained, feeling unsupported, people who don't respect your boundaries, people who are overly competitive or gossip, just negativity, the fact that you don't feel good after you've spent time with them, you know, hurtful behavior, jealousy, like an inability to apologize. So we didn't. The idea was last week that I would cover, why it matters, what isn't good in a friendship or relationship, and what to avoid, and then also the flip side of that of what we should be looking out for and what we should be wanting and building more of in our lives in regards to relationships and connections and communities with other people. But we ran out of time. So this session is mainly about, the positive side of things. So who you should be kind of thinking about surrounding yourself with, what qualities you should be looking out for, and how to kind of navigate those things. Like, how do you pick the right people for either way you want to be or for how you want to feel. So one of the kind of key quotes that I'd had lined up to just lead with is, which I didn't share last week, is that it is in fact a combination of these two things, who we know and what we do, that influences more than any other factor who we will become. Because what you do puts you around people, and the people you're around affects what you do. Does anyone want me to repeat that? Because I know it's quite wordy, and I actually, part of me feels like I want to repeat it for myself as well. I'm just going to catch up on the comments quickly. Cool. So it is in fact a combination of these two things, who we know and what we do, that influences more than any other factor who we will become. Because what you do puts you around people, and the people you're around affects what you do. So I feel like that's a really wordy way of basically saying who we know and what we do influences who we will become more than any other factor does. And obviously what we do influences who we end up hanging out with, and who we hang out with ends up influencing what we do. So I guess it's a kind of I don't want to say a vicious cycle. I guess it is, depending on who you spend your time with and what you end up doing, right? But it has a cyclical nature to it. So does anyone here have any thoughts before I kind of run through the stuff I have prepared? What, in your minds, do you use as tools or signals or to help you navigate who you should be spending time around or who you want to spend time around? If you guys are open to sharing, please put some notes in the chat. Give you guys a second to type, because I know from being on the other side of things that it takes a little while. So if anyone else wants to share while I read out Lauren's comment, please do. So Lauren, you said how your body and your heart feels. So that's an indication of whether someone is good or bad for you to hang around with, right? So can you elaborate on that? So how oh, Heidi, hi. You've got to go to a voice lesson. I won't be putting up notes anywhere, but my sessions all go onto YouTube. So you can catch up with them later on. And also there was last week's session as well, which was a part one of this. But I've just put my YouTube handle in the chat. So if you find me on there, when I eventually, and that should be 4 ones, yeah. If you find me on there, then you'll be able to watch the previous sessions, and also when I upload last week's one, that as well. Usually I kind of clean up the audio and stuff. Oh, Heidi, that's really sweet. So Heidi, enjoy your voice lesson, and hopefully catch you at another one of these sessions. If you follow me on here, you'll get notified for when my next ones are. So Lauren, you're saying if you feel any drain or discomfort, heavy-hearted, and on the opposite side of that, how do you feel how do your body and your heart feel when you hang out with somebody that's good for you and a better influence? So, one of the key things that when I was kind of looking at, how do we, because I have a inbuilt kind of compass for this, and I try and spend my time with people who lift me up or help me grow, but or simply make me feel good. And yeah, like you said, Lauren, very light, connected, joyful, energized. You feel better than when you you feel better after you leave them compared to before, right? Not worse, which is one of the key things that we picked up on last week. So one of the kind of leading thoughts that I wanted to add is, surrounding yourself with people who hold you to a higher standard is a really, really good way to grow. So, and I've got a little quote again. Surrounding yourself with people who have higher standards than you is the fastest way to change. In fact, I believe it's the only way to truly and permanently change. And that's by Benjamin P. Hardy. I don't agree fully with that, because I think there are many, many ways to change, and a lot of that includes kind of rewiring our mindset. But I think definitely the people that you surround yourself with make a huge difference, because it's funny how certain behavior can become acceptable or unacceptable in the context of where you are and who you're hanging out with. So if you're hanging out, let's say, with friends that like party and drink a lot, suddenly, you having a couple of drinks isn't a big deal, and actually you're the kind of responsible one. But if you're hanging out with people that, are more health conscious and like barely drink at all, suddenly you having like even one beer is a much like bigger thing, like it stands out, right? So I think context is really important. So but the reason that kind of, people who hold you to a higher standard, and I think, it goes without saying that we should also be holding ourselves to a higher standard, but the standard of your life determines a lot of other things within it: where you go, how you behave, who you spend time with, um how, little things like, do you make your bed when you get up in the morning? Do you pride yourself in your work or in anything else that you do? And I think it's a combination of sort of discipline, sort of pushing yourself when you don't feel like it, and just kind of having high standards for yourself and therefore also those around you. So if you set lower kind of standards for yourself, you typically will, when let's say you're then cutting yourself some slack, that standard slips even lower. Whereas if you set high standards for yourself, if you're having an off day and you need to take it easy a little bit, you can kind of say, okay, well, I'm going to lower my standards slightly for this day, but it's still a pretty, based on your standard by default being much higher, it's not that big a jump, and you're still, you have a medium standard even on a bad day, compared to having a low standard and then having a super, super low standard when you cut yourself some slack. So, obviously it's not going to be feasible to maybe have the highest standards all the time, but I think it's about like intention and ambition, and just, being focused on growth and the positive over, I guess, stagnating or like settling for a lower standard than you feel you believe, or than you can actually be capable of. So the I think one of the easy things around having the right people around you is that you are very likely to kind of do similar things to the people that you spend time with, and therefore if you spend time with people who go to the pub all the time, you are quite likely to do that as well, because when you're meeting up with them or socializing with them, and if you're trying not to drink, for example, but they're like, oh, let's go to the pub, it makes it harder for you to not do that behavior. However, if you, let's say you're trying to improve your health and fitness, and I said this last week, if you have friends that are going to say, oh, let's go to a dance class, or let's do this activity together, or like play badminton or tennis or whatever, you're more likely to do those activities just by just by default, because you've got someone in your life who does those things and will like invite you to them. So I've got another little quote. So um this is from someone called Grant Cardone. If you're not moving at all, you're not going up, and you're not going down, you're going down. So this is around, I guess, sort of being in stagnation, or homeostasis, as some people refer to it. So basically what he's saying is like, if you aren't moving forward, or if you aren't going up, um you're basically still like going down, because and this is one thing that people forget quite often, is that it still takes effort to maintain. So even let's say you have a career, or you have a certain level of health and fitness, if you made no effort in those areas whatsoever, you would lose your job, or you would lose your health and fitness. And you do actually have to put in a conscious effort to like maintain employment, even in the same job, without having even without career progression, right? It still takes effort to maintain that. And similarly, with health and fitness, it still takes effort to maintain your current health or fitness, or muscle mass, or whatever it is that your goals are, or that you're, whatever you're using as a metric to measure. If you didn't do anything at all, you would probably get worse, or your health would decline, or your fitness would decline. So yeah, and this is another quote from Benjamin P. Hardy, who I mentioned earlier. Um, he said, "Your level of talent and potential are irrelevant if you're surrounded by people who don't help you realize it." Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Because I think that's pretty powerful. So if you're full of talent and potential, but you're surrounded by people who, let's say, dim your light, or don't empower you, or celebrate you, or encourage you, or see the light in you, it's irrelevant. And I think many of us have been in those kinds of situations. So have you ever been in a job, or a friendship, or a relationship where you don't feel super comfortable, you can't really be yourself, or you don't feel appreciated, and therefore you dim your own light? Let's say you don't share your ideas, you don't share your input, because you don't feel like it's valued, or like it's going to be heard. That's kind of the same thing. And maybe we should also have another session about staying in jobs, or communities, or circles where your potential or talent isn't being realized or celebrated. So, and there's another kind of circular little note at the end that's, if you surround yourself with people who hold you to a higher standard, because who you surround yourself with determines your standards. So ultimately, it's again, it's that cyclical thing of your standards are determined by who you spend time with, but who you spend time with also determines your standards. Hi, Gerwin. Lovely to have you here. Is it your first time with us? Because I don't recognize you. And if so, welcome, welcome. Um, so another, the kind of next marker of who we should and maybe shouldn't be spending our time with, and this is a really interesting one, because I hadn't thought about it in these terms before. But have any of you got any friendships or relationships with anybody, but you wouldn't recommend that friendship or relationship to someone else? Has anyone got an example of that they can share? You don't have to give me the specific example, but just say, just let me know if that rings true to you. So, the quote that I have around this is, if you have a friend whose friendship you wouldn't recommend to your sister, or your father, or your son, why would you have such a friend for yourself? Interesting, that, isn't it? And I think it's absolutely valid. I think a lot of people make excuses for the friendships or relationships that they have. They make excuses for other people, or they also um sort of misinterpret, having love and compassion for someone as being an okay reason to have poor boundaries, let's say. So because I believe that you can have love and compassion for yourself and for other people, but also have boundaries in place if people are not a good influence on you, if they're not making you feel good, if they're taking away from you shining your light, as I would say. Also, nightly reminder to hydrate if you need to have some water or have some tea. Usually I have both with me, but I've taken a bunch of like um the probiotics and stuff like that, so you're not meant to have hot things afterwards, which is a shame, because I love doing these sessions with a tea in hand. So Lauren, you said can happen in bands. Oh, do you mean when you're playing in a band? Hi Michelle, lovely to see you. I've known Michelle sort of on and off for ages, just from seeing her on other lives, so it's yeah, it's cool to have you here. So um one of the other things that I love is this quote, and it's, people often conflate success with financial success and making loads of money and whatever. But and this is from a guy called Tim Sanders, who is the former Yahoo director. So I'm sure he's talking about it in some in that term as well. But I think it's also in a wider context, which is your network is your net worth. And I think he means it from the point of view of actually, whoever you can network with and whatever will bring you success, etc. But I actually look at it another way, and I think all of us here will as well. That quote and that phrase to me is so much kind of richer in that I think we place a lot of value, obviously, on, the material world and things like that. And I think, as many of you know, we're moving further away from that. Earlier this year, we went through the age of Aquarius, so we're moving from 3D to 5D consciousness. So for anybody who isn't aware of what that is, up until now, we've been living in a time and in a world where we're very focused on the 3D world, the material world, what we can see in front of us, what we can kind of touch, feel, smell, see, everything that we can perceive with our five senses. Now we're moving more into the 5D world, which is all about things that we can't necessarily see, but that we can feel and that we understand on a kind of deeper, more spiritual, like soul level. So it's the understanding that there are things around us that we can't experience or necessarily perceive with our five senses, such as, things like serendipity, coincidence, manifestation, like anything that feels sort of ethereal and slightly magical but exists anyway. Or, things like when you're thinking about someone and then they ring you, or sort of all these moments of just things that seem like divine timing, or, magic, frankly, is what I would call it. And so we're moving from into a world where we're more focused on, community and helping others, and not really so much about material, um, material gain or financial wealth or whatever, in the same way as we have been. And that's why, a lot of companies are dissolving and changing and having all these big layoffs, because the structure of the world is changing. So in that kind of spirit, the that phrase to me, your network is your net worth, I really believe that. I think your network, your connections, the community you have around you, the relationships you have, the support system that you have in place is the most valuable thing in your life that you can invest in. And the reason I say that is because, okay, first of all, we're social beings beyond everything else. We're not supposed to be here to kind of just attain loads of wealth and material things. We're here to connect with others. We're here to help each other. We're here to kind of grow together, to be part of something and be in communities where we feel seen and heard, and we feel like we're um, connected to other human beings in a meaningful way. So that's why I think personally your network is your net worth. And the other on that note as well, the thing I was reading around this was basically talking about how, oh, just like with investments, you want to diversify your portfolio. So, don't just have like one or two friends that you invest loads into. It's like have a few people that you have like a little bit of diversity in your friendship group, in your communities, etc. But I, I kind of, I don't know, I don't really like the analogy that they made to the whole financial thing, but they talk about, that by doing that you reduce risk and limit losses and stuff. And obviously we've spoken in previous sessions where people here and also people in my own life who I'm friends with have talked about being friends with someone for like 20, 30 years, and then that person suddenly disappears, or something happens and the friendship dissolves out of nowhere. And they felt a really big, and especially for the people where that was like one of their main closest friendships, they felt a really big hit and they felt a really big sense of loss when that happened, because they obviously yeah, they basically, I just got slightly distracted there. I was just thinking about something else. But they essentially invested a lot into, one or maybe two people, and then there's a massive void left when that person is no longer um kind of available. And people always make the case then that saying that, oh, I've chosen to just rely on myself and it's much better for me and easier and it will kind of keep me safer or whatever. But my feeling is that while it gives you the perception of control, which is really what, us trying to keep ourselves safe is about, it's not about us being we're not in any immediate danger, but by, let's say pulling back or withdrawing or not putting ourselves out there, we have the illusion of control, and therefore we create a false sense of security or a false sense of safety that makes us feel like we can't get hurt or whatever. But actually it's not about that. It's not about, just safeguarding yourself so that you don't ever get close to anyone and then they can't hurt you. But it's about having a healthy kind of, it's not about completely removing yourself from relationships or connections or situations. It's about having like it's about being more flexible so that you can, be in connection or relationship or friendship to other people. But if that person doesn't behave the way that you expect, or something changes and they let you down, you're still okay. I think just, avoidance is never a like long-term solution to anything. And I also kind of I read or heard something this week that was around how actually it was in, I know what it was. It was in an Apple TV show called Sunny, and it was there's a guy who like makes robots, and he creates this robot that's supposed to be kind of a home bot where people can actually build relationships with them. And he said it was really good for people who were kind of in depression or isolation and super lonely. And by the way, Sunny is a fictional TV show with, I think, Rashida Jones is in it and a few other people. But the plot, the thing that the guy who's making this robot says is he explains that, as humans, we evolved to feel hunger so that we don't starve, so that our body can get the calories and the nutrients that it needs to, in order to, fuel ourselves and stay alive. In the same way, he says that we evolved to feel loneliness because it serves a purpose. Because historically, we would have needed to be living in community and, in connection to other people in order for our survival. And so it's the same kind of thing. We feel loneliness for a reason. It's like, when we feel hunger, it's a sign that, okay, I need to eat. Similarly, when we feel loneliness, it's a sign that, oh, I need to return to my roots as a social being and I need to connect with another person or people. But the paradox is, which he mentions in the show, is he says that the paradox with loneliness is that the more lonely we feel and the deeper we get into loneliness, the harder it then becomes for us to then reach out to someone. And I suppose it's kind of similar with hunger, right? Like if you were so hungry and starved, you'd get to a point where you couldn't move or you wouldn't have the strength to like go and get yourself some food. So I would say that's why kind of I think this work is so important. Focusing on relationships and connections and being proactive about that before you get to a place where you're too lonely to be able to kind of come out of your comfort zone or make that happen for yourself. So let's see. Before I crack on, does anybody have any kind of questions or comments or anything that they want to share off the back of what I've said so far? Or anybody who is new and just joined us that wants to say hello? I recognize a couple of the pictures down the bottom of people who pop in quite regularly, but don't always say don't. There's a few people that don't say hi in the chat, and I'm not going to address them because I don't know if they want to be I don't know if they want to be like engaged with. But yeah, hi Peter, lovely to see you. Where are you here from? Let's see. Oh, you're from Florida. Cool. Pitouche. So that's really cool. We've got in like three messages, one after another. We've got Peter Brook, Pitouche, and Peter. Hi Jen. Lovely to see you here. Where are you listening in from? Oh, from Hawaii. I thought I was gonna say Hawaii because you said aloha, but I thought it might be too cliche or too obvious. Pitouche from New Zealand. We had someone else from New Zealand here earlier. Um was that Tanya? I think it was Tanya who was here from New Zealand. And then Scott from Portland, cool. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining, guys. And is it for everyone that's here? Can you send up some hearts if it's your first time listening to me on Insight Timer? Or you can put it in the chat, whatever's easier. Okay, there's a couple of hearts. Um, so just to give you guys a little overview on what I teach around, because I normally do this at the beginning, but it's kind of useful sometimes to do it in the middle because more people join. I teach around building community and authentic, meaningful connection because many of you probably know this, but we live in a time where, although we have the illusion of being more connected than ever because of the whole world of social media, we're actually more isolated and lonelier than ever before. And especially after COVID, a lot of people have just, the thing of working from home or just staying inside the whole time has become super normalized. So there's a lot of downside to that. Vitamin D deficiencies are the highest they've ever been. Depression as well, anxiety, and people are simply spending like way too much time indoors and not going outside. And it's largely because we spend too much time behind screens. So that's kind of something that I think is fundamentally going to shape the way our world works going forward unless we do something about it. And, those of you that live in cities will have noticed probably that whenever you go to any store now, no matter what type, you mostly are checking out with a machine instead of a person. So all these previously we would have had all these little moments for interaction organically with people, and they've all gone now. So even as an example, everybody now has AirPods and headphones, and so people generally speaking don't smile at each other or speak to each other on public transport for the most part. It's actually very rare that people will kind of talk to a stranger unless you're somewhere where you're at, like, let's say a class, or you're doing an activity or something where you've deliberately come to meet people. So to continue where we were at, right, so yeah, one a couple of the kind of nicer, or not nicer, but the quotes that I had to share is that if you, and this is around quality of who you're hanging out with and how to differentiate between what works for you and what doesn't and why it matters. So you cannot hang out with negative people and expect to live a positive life. And that's a quote from Darren Hardy. I don't know who he is, but if anyone does, please put it in the chat. um and I think that's so true. You can't hang out with negative people and expect to have a positive life, because listen, you could be the most positive person in the world, but if you're only hanging out with people who are negative and who are potentially bad influences on you, um you will your light will get dimmed slightly by them. Your positivity can only withstand so much, right? You can be the most positive person in the world, but if there's like 7 people around you that you're closest to or you live with or you spend a lot of time with, and they're perpetually negative, even with that will affect you even in subconscious ways without you realizing it. And I've noticed that myself. So I'll give you a really simple example. I've mentioned this before, but I went through redundancy earlier this year. And, I've got some people in my life that know um, that I'm absolutely fine and they're not worried about me, and, they're really excited about everything that I'm doing with Insight Timer and, the other things that I've got going on. But then there's 1 or 2 people in my life, and I'm doing a lot of voluntary work at the moment where I'm not getting paid at all. And I was saying to somebody in my life that basically that I'm gonna be doing this voluntary stuff for like whatever period of time I was doing it for. And then that person said to me, "Oh wow, like 6 months of work for absolutely no money at all." And it was a very like cynical response. And for me, my personal view is I'm getting so much from doing this that actually it's not about the money at all. And actually, what I'm getting out of it is far more valuable and significant and important to me than having a financial reward. But I do understand that, for this other person, because we are so used to prioritizing money, that's the first thing that comes to mind for them. But the problem is, and I understand this, I believe in manifestation. I've never had to worry about money before, in the sense that I know that I'm resourceful, I work hard, and when I need to, I've got some savings, but also so I can like take care of myself for the few months while I'm doing this voluntary stuff. But also I just know kind of overall that everything always works out in the end, and I know that when you're acting in service and coming from a good place and actually genuinely trying to help people, and that's your priority, and everything else does fall into place and takes care of itself, and you have to just release fear and be in flow. And I know all of these things deep down, but I'm going to be honest, that person in my life who said that to me, that still stuck with me. Like, this was a couple of weeks ago now, and I'm still thinking about it occasionally, like to the point where I mentioned it now, right? So it just goes to show that things do stick with you, and none of us are immune to the opinions or thoughts of others, and actually they will sometimes just like stick in our head or be front of mind whether we want them to or not. So yeah, and just in terms of ways to reflect on who we're spending time with and why, and this is so for anyone that's joined, today's topic is around um how we reflect on who we spend our time with and how we look for more positive indications of who we want to be around. So one kind of way of looking at things is who you spend time with someone that you would want to become, or would you like to be like them? Because a year from now, let's say you spend a year around this person, you're quite likely to become a bit more like them, or pick up some of their habits, or yeah, have kind of a little bit more in common with them over time. Whereas it's different if you're just seeing someone occasionally, but it's more just who you spend your time around the most. So if you have a friend whose friendship you wouldn't recommend to anyone else, like, try and back away from that person a little bit and surround yourself with people who will help you to feel more positive about yourself as well, or who you want to be. So Jeff just said something nice. Quote I heard about negative people was Einstein: "Stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution." Jeff, that's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's brilliant. That's actually so good. Oh, and you've got a cute little bunny as your picture. Jeff, is that like a random bunny, or is that a pet? For anyone that's interested, I've got 3 guinea pigs, and sometimes I bring them on the live. So if anyone would like to see them, put a message in the chat and I'll bring one of them to say hi a little bit later. I'm just gonna do. Right, actually, no. I'm just gonna get the other bit up to share. Oh, that's so cute. Anyone who hasn't seen Jeff's picture, it's a very, very sweet little bunny. I'm just looking at the bunny picture. But so, how to reflect on who we spend time with. Does anyone have any suggestions or ideas before I share? So, you can consider these things, which I've mentioned before, but just kind of we'll run through them. Reflect on your values. So, if you can focus on and figure out the values and the qualities that matter to you, and I would actually suggest, outside of even friendships and communities, look at your whole life, every part of your life through this lens. Your job, where you live, who you spend time with, what you do with your free time, how you like nourish yourself, what habits you have, what your morning or nighttime routine is. Do these things fit in with your values, and do they help you to live in line with actually what you care about and what matters to you? So let's say, I'll give you a kind of simple example. Let's say, like, I don't know, peace was one of your values. If you are spending time with people who kind of stress you out, or people who are very like dramatic or gossipy, or let's say you're spending time going to like bars that are loud and noisy, um and none of these things, and all these things like don't make you feel good, but you just do them because you think that's what you're supposed to do, or that's because what your friends do. That's all compromising your core value of peace, right? A similar thing, if you really care about spontaneity, if that's one of your values, but then you are in a job that you find restrictive and stifling, you live in one place, you don't have much opportunity to kind of go from place to place or travel, you will struggle, and you will be unhappy. So it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, or vice versa. So if you can figure out what your values are, what matters to you, what is the most what are the most important things, and then pick people to spend time with who align with that, that'll make it easier for you to live in line with your values, and also just to be more authentically yourself, which I think we all ideally want and need. So Jen said take an inventory at the end of the day. Yeah, that's a really nice suggestion as well. So another one is be honest. So be really, really honest with yourself about what friendships and relationships and communities that you're part of, which ones really support you and make you feel good and are helpful and useful and valuable, and which ones you kind of don't know why you do them or why you're involved with them, or um yeah, like just knowing somebody for a really long time isn't a good enough reason to keep them in your life, but loads of people do. And then another one is like find people who shine. So I really like this phrase because I always talk about, that we all have a light inside us and about shining your light. So look for people who are like shiny. And what I mean by that is people who are like positive, who emit light and love and make you feel good, and like people who just literally radiate joy. Because I don't know whether you guys have noticed, and I'm sure you will have done, but if whenever you've been around these kinds of people, or like listen to them or watch them, and there's quite a few teachers on Insight Timer where I feel like this when I go to their lives, it literally just makes me feel like, oh wow, like they're so lovely and they're just a light being, and I feel good after having listened to them or talked to them or engage with them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything specific that they said or did, it's just like an energy that gets transmitted. So that's a really nice one. Have any of you got an example of someone in your life, or someone that you've met, or someone that you follow or whatever, who you would say shines? And I would say if you've got those people in your life, try and spend more time with them, especially if that rubs off on you. So, some of the qualities that people that shine have, they're kind of positive and curious and self-aware. And another one is find people who are growth oriented. So, people who are able to look at where they're at and reflect on their themselves, um who are kind of supportive and genuine, and also just who are likely to be a kind of positive influence on you. So Neil has shared. Hi Neil, by the way. How are you? Neil shared, I agree that it's important to keep good company, but not to avoid people who are suffering or are difficult. Maybe they need the light. They need our light the most. Yeah, Neil, absolutely. I think, and I've talked about this before as well, is that it's never about just kind of shutting or cutting someone off, or shutting someone out, or cutting someone off. It's about setting boundaries, or maybe slightly reducing our, like, protecting our energy a bit when we're spending time with people who, let's say, violate our boundaries or treat us badly, etc. I think where people are kind of difficult or going through something, I think generally speaking, most of us have an understanding of, when we care about someone. Like, obviously, we've all got friends and family that have gone through difficult things, or even maybe we have ourselves, and we know what that looks like, right? Like when I'm having a hard time or a difficult day, I'll be honest, today has been a really, really challenging day, and I've maybe not been like the easiest person to sort of speak to or connect with after that, with people I'm closest to, because I think my energy's been off, and so maybe I've been a little like, I don't know, um a little like needier or a little more demanding than I usually would be, and or a little more irritable or whatever. Um, so yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a valid point. It's important to hold space for people, but I think it's a kind of balancing act between being there for people who are having a difficult time and need us, but also making sure that that doesn't come at the cost of our our light and our joy. Because I think the way I'd look at it is, um, we want to basically share our light, but we don't want to let people completely snuff out or dim our light. And I've just come up with that now, but I think that's quite a nice way of looking at it. If that does that make sense to anyone? Is that a good analogy? Shall I use that again? So I'll repeat that. Imagine that we're a candle or whatever, or we have a candle in our heart. We want to share our light with others. How when you like light a candle with another candle, but we don't want to let anyone just blow us out or just snuff out our light. Yeah. Hi, Selena. Lovely to see you here. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna use that. That made me smile, like making that up. Okay, so how and other ways to kind of I'm gonna take a little pause there because we've got maybe 40 minutes left and I've got a fair few things to kind of still cover with you guys. But and then we'll do a little bit more. So before all of you joined, most of you joined, I had this book, which is what we'll end on as well. It's called Love Your Life. And essentially, there's little quotes and things, and there's 205 pages. So we already did some. But basically, I said to everyone in the chat, if you want to have a little reading, I'm not going to do it now, I'll do it at the end. But at the end, we'll just say put in a number from 1 to 205, and I'll read out a little message for whoever puts in a number and what that page says. So I've just clicked on, not clicked on. So I've I've just opened the book at a random page, and I'm just going to read out a little message so you guys get a feel for what kind of things come up. Michelle, we're going to do that at the end, so hold on to your number. Do you know what? I'll do Michelle's one because I'm near 50, but then we'll do the rest at the end. So save your numbers for the end if you'd like one. So I was going to just open one randomly and share, but we'll do one for now and then we will do the rest at the end. So 51 for Michelle. Reinvent yourself. It's easy to find excuses for not living up to your potential. It's much harder to do something about it. If you find yourself complaining about the same aspect of your life over and over, stop. Take a deep breath and put the energy you usually spend on complaining towards reinventing that part of your life. And do you know what? I'm gonna suggest that we all just kind of take a breath for a couple of minutes because I have had a really long day and I don't know if you guys have as well, but it's been a really complicated and really like higgledy-piggledy type of day. So if anyone else can do with taking just like 3 breaths, there's loads of hearts going up, so I'm gonna take that as a sign that we all could use a little breather, literally. So what I'm gonna do so that I can breathe as well, I'm gonna put up this finger for breathing. Hang on, I'm gonna go like this. I'm gonna go in and then I'm gonna go out for out. So if you guys breathe with me so that I'm not saying the words as I'm doing it, I'm gonna put the microphone down and we'll do it together. So we're going in and we're going out. Okay, let's try this. I'm probably gonna look ridiculous on the video doing this, but let's give it a go. And like slow deep breaths, whatever you need to do. Next time I'll cue up some music and we can do that together. But time for breathing, everyone. I might just put it in the chat as well. So 1 second, just so if anyone joins, they don't wonder what we're doing. Hey guys, how was that little random breathing break? Do we want a slightly longer one? Or do we want another one before we end the session? Maybe we'll do one in a bit. But I actually really needed that and I didn't realise quite how much. Michelle, thank you so much for your generous donation. That's so, so sweet of you. On that note, if anyone would like to support me and enjoyed this session or got any value from it so far, I'd really appreciate any donations that you're wanting to contribute. So you can either donate via the button here or via my page, my teacher profile at any point. But also, if you've got an Apple device, Apple take 30%, unfortunately. So there is another way to donate. If you follow me on Insight Timer and go on my link tree, there's a little link to kind of a PayPal donation bit that you can make. So um, yeah, that would be very much appreciated if anyone wants to support my work. And it just helps me to kind of invest more into my journey as a teacher here and do these free sessions for all of you. But other ways that you can support me non-financially, if you're not in a position to do that, are by following me on here, obviously spending your time with me on my lives, or also I'm trying to grow my YouTube account more and I'm posting more kind of short content. So a lot of the stuff I share on these lives, I'm cutting it into kind of shorter snippets, adding a bit of music, and you'll see what I mean if you go and look at my YouTube channel. Um, but I'll put my handle in the chat so that you guys can follow me if you're inclined to. But I've got a goal to basically reach 500 followers on both Insight Timer and on YouTube, ideally by the end of this year. So if anyone would like to kind of support my work that way, I'd really, really appreciate it. And I promise that I'll be kind of posting more, and once I've got enough followers, doing sort of more original content on there as well. So back to where we're at, and then that breathing was really, really nice, and really helpful. So um, we are at other suggestions of how do we know how do we know who to surround ourselves with, right? So, one of the key things that I thought was really interesting that we don't always think about is pay attention to how you act, so how we act around certain people. And this is like, do you feel comfortable around them? Are you trying too hard to fit in? Um, do you feel like you're kind of performing, or are you just comfortable the way you are? So, that's a really important sign um, of, whether someone is necessarily a good influence for you to spend time with or not. So whether people make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable, whether people make you feel like you have to try and impress them. And also, I should add, it's not just about how other people make you feel, right? It's just about how we feel sometimes. So a lot of things we can sometimes think like, oh, this person is judging us, and I have to keep up appearances so that they don't judge me. But actually, that's a lot of the time it's not about they're not judging us, and it's not about them. It's actually about us and maybe our own insecurities. So that's really worth sort of thinking about and reflecting on. And I think, as for me at least, I've learned that as we get older and kind of move through life and become more comfortable with ourselves, it becomes easier for us to be more comfortable around other people and kind of be our authentic selves without apology or um, without like pretending to be someone we're not, or having to. I'll give you guys a simple example. Does anyone remember from like childhood or teenage years when somebody would mention like a band or a movie or something, and you'd basically like pretend that you'd heard of it, or that you'd heard of them, or that you knew the song or whatever, because you wanted to fit in? Does anyone relate to that? Um, there's loads of hearts going up. Yeah, and at a certain point, you just kind of realize, like, actually, it's fine. They're not going to penalize me or think I'm uncool for saying that I don't know the thing. But I remember, like, there's a bit of dust. I remember the first moment that I kind of was actually like, oh, I'm going to be honest about this, feeling weird about it. And even now, I think when someone asks me if I've heard of something, I still like pause for a second, and I'm like, and I have to kind of think about, oh, have I heard of it? And then I'm like, and then I say, oh no, I haven't, or like it sounds vaguely, or sometimes I even caveat it. Sometimes I'm even like, oh, it sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not sure. even if I probably never heard of it at all. Okay, so the first thing that I just mentioned was, how we act around other people. The second one was paying attention to how you feel after hanging out around those people. We've talked about that already. And, Lauren said earlier how she feels in her heart and in her body. Um, and then another one was around, like, if you're clear on who you want to be and what you are, like, wanting more of in your life, spending time around people who fit that and can help you to get there. So let's say you're looking to kind of increase your knowledge and your learning. Spending time around people who will help you to do that, or who will make you kind of ask interesting questions, or who will challenge you, is a good way to do that. Someone said in our session last week that, oh, if I hang around my smarter friends, will I get smarter? And they were making a joke. They were actually being sarcastic and, like, it was like a funny comment. But actually, if you think about it, if you spend time with people who are more intellectual than you, let's say your other friends are people who kind of gossip or talk about, like, celebrities or whatever else, or kind of, smaller, like, small talk. If you're spending time around people who are, like, discussing intellectual things and engaging in behaviors that help them to be more intelligent and intellectual, like, for example, they read more, or they watch the news, or whatever else that might be that they do, or that they engage in, or they go to, like, lectures or whatever, if you're spending more time with those people, you're more likely to then do similar things, or they're more likely to maybe invite you along to those things, or lend you a book that they're reading. So by proxy, actually having smart friends that you spend more time with probably will make you smarter. So we've got a list of signs that that you're hanging around with nice people who will, like, help you grow, basically. So obviously we had that you feel good about them and positive after spending time with them. That's a really obvious one. You always look forward to seeing them, you're keen to see them, and it's like it feels effortless and easy and comfortable and nice. And you don't have to be doing anything particularly special. You can just sort of spend time with them, and it feels like as good as going out and doing an activity or something. It's like you feel kind of stimulated and engaged, and you feel, like, wholesome and nice afterwards. That's the way I'd word it. Another one is mutual respect. So you and your friends respect each other's views and space, and even if you're having, like, disagreements, you're able to still be respectful and considerate and, like, have a conversation about it effectively. So I guess effective communication as well comes under that whole kind of respect thing. Trust and honesty is another one. So you know that you can rely on your friends, you know that you can confide in them, and that, if you tell them something, it's not going to get repeated to someone else. And you know that when you're going through something, they'll be there. And actually, one thing I will say on that is that in my experience, so I dealt with something earlier this year, a few things actually. And it was it would have been quite a difficult time. However, I felt like more than any other time in my life, I feel like I've been the most equipped to kind of, I guess, roll with the punches, so to speak, and kind of deal with things. And around that time, a lot of the people I'm closest to have had babies in the last couple of years, and so they're really busy with that. And my mum, who I'm really close to, was in India for a couple of months. So my usual support systems and the people I'd usually turn to and would have expected to kind of both physically and emotionally kind of be there for me consistently the whole time sort of weren't. And that was because people had various things going on in their own lives, but also just, um I think I just was, like, ready to stand on my own 2 feet a little bit more than I ever have before. And I actually was surprised at how okay I was, considering everything that was going on and everything that happened. And yeah, it was a really cool feeling to just feel like, oh, I can actually rely on myself. And the other thing was that I think in the past, like, had a similar situation happen and those people hadn't been able to, like, be there for me, I would have taken it a bit more personally. I would have been like, oh, like, I'm really disappointed, or upset that this person wasn't there for me, or this person, like, didn't do the thing that, they weren't, like, they didn't, like, check in on me or come and see me or whatever. But I think because of the perspective I had on the fact that everyone's going through different things, we don't always know. I just, yeah, I kind of was able to just like let it go and be fine with it and just be glad that like I was doing okay, basically, which I thought was really cool. Um, so the other things on this list for, signs hanging out with like positive, nice, good people who are going to help you shine and brighten your light is support and empathy. So healthy friends care deeply for each other and listen and support you when you need it, which I think kind of covers the previous point a little bit as well. Um, Another one is equality and reciprocity. So we've talked about this one before, and this is another one that for me at least comes with a caveat. So good friends share equally in their relationship and help out when needed, is what it says in the kind of list that I've pulled together. However, I think that this is one that comes with a little bit of like a disclaimer. So one of the big things that we've discussed a lot in these sessions is people often talk about the fact that they have friends who, where they've been there for them, or like they've done this for their friend and blah blah blah, but the friend isn't there for them, or or I always message this friend and they never call me or message me, etc. And I've been in relationships and friendships like that, and what I've learned personally is that everything has an exchange rate, right? So I have some friendships that are really great and I know that the person cares about me, but they are, if I look at their lifestyle, they're busy, they have stuff going on, maybe they have kids or a really intense job. And therefore, maybe I have more capacity. And also, just, we all have different communication styles, we've all got different skill sets. I'm very good at being consistent. I'm very good at following through. I'm very good at staying in touch with people, generally speaking. So I I basically feel like I've learnt that if you get enough from a friendship or a relationship, and actually when you spend time with that person, they care and they are there for you and whatever, then if they can't always message you back, or if you've always got to be the one to make the plans or arrange it, it's worth just reflecting on what the exchange rate there is, because just because someone's kind of busy or not super available doesn't mean that they're necessarily a bad friend. It just means that maybe they have less capacity or they're busier. And on the same other side of it, if someone is always available and always free and always like wants to hang out or see you, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily a good friend or a good influence. Like, more likely it's that they don't have a lot going on. And I've noticed that, right? People who don't have much going on always want to like hang out. And that's not to say like everybody, obviously, but I just mean that you'll notice sometimes that people in your life who are sort of busy, or, have full lives and hobbies and families and, demanding jobs, will have a lot less capacity than, like, let's say someone who's like single and unattached and just has more flexibility in their schedule. That doesn't mean that they're a better friend. It's context, right? So yeah, and obviously, what the caveat on the other side of that I'd say is you don't want to be in a friendship or a situation where it's completely one-sided either. But it is a, yeah, and Lauren, you've been at enough of these sessions that you knew I was going to say that next. It's a balancing act. And it's worth just, again, this is where like values come into play. Like, what is more important to you, having a friend that replies to you, or having a friend who is there for you when you really need them? And like, and when I say replies to you, I mean like, let's say just occasionally if they can't always get back to you or whatever. Um, but they're there for you when you need them. It's worth figuring out what's most important to you, what matters most to you, and then like living in line with that, or um managing your relationships and friendships accordingly. Yeah, different values, different priorities, and also perspective. Like, there's always two sides to every story, right? So where you think that you've had a fallout with a friend for one reason, their experience of the situation might be completely different. Okay, so they understand you. So they like you as you are and know the benefits of pursuing personal growth. So I think those are almost separate points, but I think they understand you is a really important one. But I think that also comes under, being able to be comfortable around them and sort of feeling seen and heard and understood and like you can be yourself. And then also, yeah, I think they like you as you are, but they will also encourage you with the things that you're trying to achieve. So I'll give you an example. You might have a friend who, let's say you are trying really hard, you've made a commitment, and you're really wanting to like go to the gym more or work out more or eat healthily or whatever it might be. Um, so let's say that's your goal that you've made. And then you ring your friend and you say, "Oh, I didn't go to the gym today. I was a bit tired. Like I'll go tomorrow." Now, or I'm not sure I feel like going to the gym today. Like what should I do? Now, there's different ways that people will handle this. There'll be some people that will just be like neutral and not really say anything. There'll be some friends that will say, "Oh, well, why don't you just go for a bit or go for a walk or go and have a stretch or something?" Sort of just like do something, and they'll encourage you because they know that you've communicated to them, this is a goal that's important to me and I'm trying to do this, so like hold me accountable. But then also you might have friends who are a little bit like, "Oh, don't worry, you've had a long week, like just chill out, watch some TV, like relax." And so I'm laughing at Michelle and Jack's conversation. So Michelle noticed that Jack joined and said like hi straight away, and then Jack was like, "Michelle, you're quick," which she was. I was impressed too. But also, hi Jack, lovely to see you. Jack's one of the kind of Insight Timer like regulars. I see you on a lot of lives. Um, we've got a lot of the same sort of favorite teachers. So where was I? Can anyone bring me back to what I was saying? Oh yeah, friends who were, so you might have a friend who says, so you kind of tell them you really really want to improve your health and fitness and you're trying to do this, and like you ask them to hold you accountable, but then when you actually tell them, "Oh, I don't feel like going," or "I don't feel like going to the gym today," they don't actually encourage you. They're kind of just they're doing the compassion thing, or like helping you cut yourself some slack, but actually sometimes what you need or what you've asked for, what you want, is like the opposite of that. You don't want someone to make excuses for you. You kind of want somebody sometimes to give you a little nudge, or be the voice of reason, so to speak. And that's, as an example, I've tried to stop buying like chocolate and unhealthy things as gifts for people a lot of the time. Sometimes I still will, but I've tried to stop that being like the default, because I think, I know a lot of people in my life, like my aunts or my mum or whoever, are trying to keep their cholesterol down or eat a little bit more healthy, or, they're on like medication or whatever. So I know that actually, as much as it's like a nice treat, me giving them like sugar or things that are not super great for them when they're trying to avoid those things isn't necessarily a loving or compassionate thing to do. And so I've tried to do more of that going forward. And also like alcohol, because those are the two kind of easy generic gifts that people often give or bring when they go to someone's house or something. And so where possible, I try to take like a nice like set of like fancy tea, or like a candle, for example, just because I'm mindful of that whole thing of so Jay, you said, should relationships always be transactional? So when I say exchange rate, what I personally mean, and I say this a lot about everything, is I say that there's an exchange rate to every single thing. And those of you who've been to my sessions before, like Lauren, will know this, but I say that there's an exchange rate to every choice you make, right? Like, so let's say if I decide that tonight for dinner I'm gonna have a salad over um like a burger and fries, the exchange rate there is that Jack, I'll reply to you in a second. Godiva is really good chocolate, and I'll explain why shortly as well. But yeah, so exchange rate is basically, if I decide I'm going to have a salad over a burger and fries, the exchange rate there is that I will miss out on some of the flavor and the instant gratification of the burger and fries, but health wise and nutrient wise, that's what I'm getting in return. So there's a clear exchange rate there. And so for me, it would be, what is the most like valuable thing at the moment? Do I need the instant gratification and the flavor and the kind of dopamine, or do I need the nutrition and the nutrients and to feel a bit lighter before I go to bed? Equally, if you are getting up early in the morning, the exchange rate there is that it's cold, it's like shitty getting out of bed early in winter especially, but I might have time to be more productive and do other things that I need or want to do. So that's what I refer to when I'm talking about exchange rate, or even the other way I talk about it is, if I if, for example, I don't really drink sugary drinks, I'd rather eat food that has sugar in, because for me the exchange rate of like the flavor and stuff is I prefer, like, if I'm gonna have sugar, I find it more enjoyable in food than I do in a drink. So yeah, that's what I mean. But so Jack, what I was talking about with relation to friendships in terms of exchange rate is that sometimes we need to make a compromise. We need to, like, deal with something we don't like, such as, us always having to be the one to like message, or us always having to be the one to initiate, or us having to like follow up if we know they're busy. However, sometimes that exchange rate is worth it, because, like, even though, it might be a bit annoying that we always have to message, the exchange rate is worth it because we enjoy the time with them, or we value their friendship, etc. So it's like the little things that you have to kind of be able to let go of, or just kind of not make a big deal out of or worry about. Which is it more worth it for you to pick up on those things and either like let go of that friendship or make an issue of it, or is it easier for you to just, or is it more important to you to just kind of get on with it and, okay, maybe be the one to do most of the communication, but then when you have the quality time together, it's worthwhile. That's the kind of the way I'm looking at it when I say exchange rate. But thanks for the question. um and hi, Carolina. And so Jack said, I'm still counting on Godiva for Christmas from me, Priyanka. Well, Godiva is the best chocolate. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to ship it to where you are, but feel free to send some my way if you can figure it out. So Godiva is the best chocolate. Does anybody know why? Or it's one of the kind of nicer chocolates. Or people really like it. Hi, Tea Lady Nat. Lovely to see you. So with Godiva, we are just talking about that. It has a higher fat content. It has actually it has like butter fat or butter oil in it, which is why it's delicious. But that's why chocolate that has higher fat content basically melts in the mouth better. So that's why it's like extra delicious. So, so everybody is a Godiva fan. So you totally agree. Oh yeah, you send your son Godiva advent calendars every holiday season. Lovely. I need to get an advent calendar. So what I've realised as well is you can also, if you get other chocolate like Lin or other brands, and this is what I do sometimes for desserts, I melt it in the microwave with a tiny bit of like coconut oil, or actually butter sometimes. It's so naughty, but and it just makes it like extra creamy, and you can then drizzle it on top of stuff and it becomes really like easy to drizzle because it's more liquidy. Or you can let it set and then it just like melts in your mouth even more than the default chocolate did. Sorry if I'm making anyone crave chocolate. So where were we at? We were at, they give advice and share resources with you. So basically, other signs that people are kind of good vibes and good to be around is that they'll happily give you advice when you need it and share resources with you if needed, and proactively tell you about new opportunities that might interest you. So I don't know whether any of you have ever um ever sort of been in situations where you know people who've kind of like kept opportunities to themselves, or like not included you in something, or not, let's say they heard about like a job or a course or something, and it's something that you would have been interested in, but they like intentionally didn't share it with you. um that's kind of not the vibe that you want. You want people, and I feel like I try and be one of those people. When I hear about stuff, or if I'm doing something, I try and share it with the people that I'm close to, that I think would benefit from it, or who would enjoy it. And I think that's kind of, again, that's something that I've had to like learn over time as well, is that the people close, like people that we work with, even, for example, like it's about looking at people not as your competition, but instead like looking at it as we can all move forward and grow together. But I've noticed that with like some friends, where they'll tell me that they did a thing, or they were going to a thing or whatever, and it will be something that would be so my vibe. But obviously I didn't know about it, and it does cross my mind, like, oh, could they not have told me about it before? Um, so Thea, you said you've got 92% chocolate by Vivani. I really love dark chocolate. It's my favorite. I actually I eat 100% dark chocolate sometimes. But what I had today, actually, I had I basically melted down a bar of, I think it was like 90% dark chocolate, maybe even more than that. Might have been higher than 90, but I melted it down with some lime oil, which is just like it's essential oil, but it's food safe. It's essential oil from like lime, so it's made from the skin, and it has a really lovely like strong lime flavor. So you only need a tiny bit, and it's also delicious in yogurt as well. And I put that in, and a tiny bit of sea salt, and I put it into like these really tiny heart shaped molds, and then I had like a little jar of them in my fridge. But I cleared out my fridge recently, so I'm trying to like have just all the little random things I have, like all the little random condiments and sauces. I'm trying to just use them up. But I had one of those like sea salt lime dark chocolate things that I made earlier. The jar's kind of just over there, and I've also got some freeze dried strawberries as well because I cleared out my cupboards, and I was like, oh, I need to finish all of these things that I've just got little tiny amounts of. Um, so Linda, you said that you sent your auntie's 94 Godiva advent calendar saying, oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, it's getting close to Christmas, isn't it? She's in an assisted living place and thought that might be something she'd look forward to each day. That's really lovely. And hi, Linda, as well. There's so Lauren, you just said sounds divine. So there was a chocolate brand called Divine that growing up they had in a vending machine in my school, and it was really, really nice. It was like a fair trade one or something like that. But I remember that. So that's like slightly nostalgic. Um, the last like little tip that we had, and then I'll do the last few minutes. We'll kind of revert to this. Um, so the last one is they know your goals. So they'll tell you about things that could help you, or they'll encourage you actively towards your goals. Oh, Linda, you were. Don't worry, better late than never. You were not rudely very late. You just joined when you could join. Um, so I've got a quote to kind of end this topic on, from many of our favorite. Many of us have her as a favorite just for the stuff she shares. Oprah Winfrey. She said, "Surround yourself with people who are going to lift you higher," which I think is a really, really lovely reminder. So that kind of closes the topic for now of how to surround ourselves with the right people or reflect on who we're surrounding ourselves with. And I mentioned this last week, but I'm putting together a program at the moment around like doing a kind of, and it's a one-on-one kind of thing where it's taking an inventory of who you have in your life in terms of friends, family, communities, relationships, and looking at what areas you want to work on. So, have you moved somewhere and you want to make new friends? Are you looking to meet more like minded people who are going to help you to grow in a certain area of your life? Are you looking for kind of mentors in a particular space? Or are you looking to improve and deepen the existing connections that you have? Or what was the other one? Or kind of even create communities or create a community where you're at the epicenter of it in your own life. So that those are some of the different options of things that oh, it's Ashley here. I just recognized your picture along the bottom. Hi Ashley. Lovely to see you. I know Ashley from like other teachers' lives that she attends with me. Um so yeah, anyway, so I'm going to be putting together this program, and I'll be doing a kind of introductory sort of pricing on that, but it'll be a one-on-one thing over 3 weeks where we'll have like 3 sessions together, and then in between you'll be given kind of an action plan and like measurable kind of goals for each of those, whatever that area is that you want to work on or improve on. So it's a really like bespoke tailored thing. So if anyone wants information on that, please drop me a message on Insight Timer. I'm just gonna join the session with my personal profile, so that if any of you want to kind of add me as a friend on here and drop me a message, you can. I do check the messages on this profile, but not as often as I check my personal one. Let me just join this. This is so weird because I'm like, okay. So I've just said hi with my personal profile in the chat. So if anyone wants to add me as a friend on there, feel free. Or if anyone wants to know more about that course, just drop me a line. Just before I launch into these, if anyone would like to support me on here, so first of all, what I'm going to say is, if anybody would like a little message or a little reading from this book, if you put a number in the chat from 1 to 205, and I'll read out a little message for you. And then also, just while everybody's doing that, we're meant to do this like 2 or 3 times alive, but I've only done it once so far. Mm, if anybody would like to support me with a donation, or got value from our session today, please feel free to donate via clicking the donate button here. Or if you're on an Apple device and you don't want to lose the 30% to Apple, then because Apple take a 30% cut, unfortunately, you can also follow me on here and then donate via my link tree. So there's like a PayPal link in there, which means Apple won't take that cut and it will come directly to me. The other ways that you can support me via the other non-monetary ways to support me include following me on Insight Timer, sharing my live sessions, obviously graciously spending your time with me as you guys have done tonight, or also following my YouTube channel, where I've got an ambition on both here and on YouTube to grow to 500 followers before the end of the year. And I'm just going to put the handle for that in chat. So I'm on subscribers, I guess they're called on YouTube. But basically, my ambition there is to, once I reach kind of 500 subscribers, is to create a lot of original content for YouTube. So at the moment, I'm kind of posting these lives. So Linda, you can catch up on this one when I've uploaded it, and the previous ones if anyone wants to. There's a range of topics, which we've got like an intro to creating kind of community and meaningful, authentic connection. That was the first one. Using our values to identify and create communities around us that help us grow. Communication skills for authentic, meaningful connection. We had guinea pigs and good vibes, which was just like a community hangout and a Q&A, and the guinea pigs came and joined as well. We had when things go wrong, navigating conflict in connection and relationships. How to attract serendipitous connections and make the most of every opportunity. Roadblocks to creating community and connection and how to overcome them. Also, widening our perspective and questioning assumptions to reduce suffering. And then we've had like a couple of sessions around attachment styles, primarily anxious attachment, and then these ones around surrounding ourselves with the right people. So we've got three people who would like a little reading, and I think I will end after these three. So let's find them. So for Maria, 37. Okay. Maria, do you by any chance try to people please or keep people happy a lot? Evie, also hi. Or are you kind of concerned with keeping people happy a lot of time? Okay, cool. So the message that you have is you can't keep everyone happy. If you find yourself feeling that no matter what you do, someone will be disappointed, stop and take a minute to reconnect with what it is that you want and what will make you happy. While it's not realistic to suggest that you will always be able to put your own wants first, unless you know what they are, they will never stand a chance. And then Thea, we've got 27. Okay. Be clear about your needs. We actually need very few possessions, so think before you spend. Ask yourself, is this something I really need, something I simply want, or something I will regret buying? When you can recognize the difference between your wants and your needs, your life will become infinitely richer. Does that ring a bell at all, Thea? Is that relevant? And then 17 is what we'll end on. Let me find it. This one's interesting. So this is for CY, or is it Psy? Am I saying it right? Okay. Never give up. When it feels like life is putting obstacle after obstacle in your path, don't give up. Remind yourself of the goal that you're working towards and how amazing you'll feel when you achieve it. You may need to dust yourself off, adjust your plan, or revise your strategy, but whatever you do, don't lose sight of your dream. So I think I will end on that, unless anybody has any questions or kind of closing remarks, as I call them. But I've been, honestly, today's been a really difficult day, and I like 15-20 minutes before coming onto here, I was like super frazzled, and I was just like, oh, how am I going to be able to do this live? And I'm sure those of you who've been here since the beginning, you've probably seen my energy like shift and improve as we've gone along. But yeah, today's been a day. The show that I'm working on goes live tomorrow, and it's been really stressful and really hectic. And yeah, I'm glad that I, managed to do this anyway, and still got to hang out with you guys. And on that note, next week, our live session will be at the same time on Monday. So I'm going to try and schedule them in further in advance now so that you guys can put them in your diaries and kind of come along. And then the following week, I'm going to have to do one a bit earlier in the day. So probably like, I think maybe 4 p.m. or so UK time. So, Lauren, you might have to miss that one, but next week will be the same time, same day of the week. Thanks, Michelle. Well, actually, it's like 10:30 here now, so I'm gonna have a really late dinner, and then I go to bed so late at the moment. It's really bad, but yeah, I hope that um, I can kind of relax a bit. So, Lauren, it will be 4 p.m. UK time, so a lot earlier, like 5 hours earlier. Not next week, the week after, but you can obviously watch the replay, and we'll chat regardless. But if anyone wants to know about any of my kind of private, like one-on-one work around, coaching around building community and authentic, meaningful connections, if anyone wants a bit of help with improving their kind of relationships and friendships, or repairing those things, or having a different perspective on stuff, or creating communities, or a wider, better, stronger network in your lives, feel free to drop me a message if there's anything I can kind of support you on. um but otherwise, yeah, please follow me here if you don't already. Thank you for your donation, Michelle, and anyone else that's donated via the Linktree and PayPal that I can't see on here at the moment. And thank you, everybody, for joining and for your contributions in the chat, and just the lovely warmth and wonderful welcome that I always get. Oh, yeah, I do need to remember self-care for myself. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will do, because the show starts tomorrow and it's going to be 4 nights a week from like, so I have to be there from like 5 p.m. until like probably midnight. So it's a lot. But I'll fill you guys in next week on how it's all going. And yeah, thank you. Funnily enough, Linda, you said break a leg, but my knee is playing up at the moment. So I actually yeah, my leg's not great, but like but I have an old knee injury, and truthfully I don't do the physio exercises enough that I should do. So yeah. But good night, everyone. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you at the same time next week. Bye, guys. And yeah, you've got my personal profile in the chat now as well, so feel free to add me as a friend on there if you want to chat or whatever. And I'll does anybody know who's on live now? Because I might try and jump onto someone else's live later tonight. Let me see what's on. Hopefully I can see you guys there. Wow, there's no one else on at the moment. Let's see who's on later. Midnight, there's usually some good people on. Oh, Carol L. Lawrence, she's on at midnight. She's one of my favorites. She's got at midnight, and I'll be listening to this as I get ready for bed. Midnight Mastery Mindset Mastery Monday. The holiday mindset, yay or nay. We're in that season of both magnified joy and intensified dread, joyful anticipation of holiday celebration, the excitement, fun, family, friends, and laughter. But what if you don't have any of that? This time of year for many is a season of dread because of loss, loneliness, financial insecurity, the hoped for love that didn't manifest again this year, cultivating feelings that leave the mind receptive to seeds of hopelessness. Let's pause and think before the race begins. So Carol, by the way, guys, and this is her. Um, she is one of those people that I talked about on here, where I said the teachers that literally light you up and just bring loads of love and light. I feel that way after listening to Carol. So if you guys are free in like an hour and a half's time, we should all jump on that live. I'll be there so you can say hi. Oh, Evie, I'm sorry that you're ill. Feel better soon. But yeah, with that, I'm going to bid you good night. And for those of you who join Carol and her live in an hour and a half, I'll see you there, and I look forward to it. Bye, everybody. Sleep well if it's bedtime for you, or like hope you have a great day if it's morning, or enjoy your evening if it's the afternoon or whatever. Bye. Thanks for being here.